A few weeks back I made a video on the history of the Waterloo and City Line. In this video I described the Waterloo and City Line as the only underground line that is completely underground. I did the same in a video on the temperature of the underground. Not so, said the comment section, for the Victoria Line is also entirely underground. Well, yes, but also no. What it comes down to is what you count as the Victoria Line. Are we only talking the bits that passengers regularly use? Because if so, then yes, the Victoria Line is also entirely underground. Every single one of its stations is below street level. However, there is a bit that is above the ground. Namely, the depot at Northumberland Park, and the track leading up to it. Actually, there is a staff-only station at Northumberland Park, so very, very technically, there is one Victoria Line station above ground. But that's a whole other story. The depot for the Waterloo and City Line is at Waterloo, and it's entirely below ground. The only access to the surface is the opening in the roof by Lower Marsh, which is how they get carriages in and out for overhaul. So if we're counting all the track, then the Waterloo and City Line wins the title of Undergroundest Underground Line. If we're not, then they're equal, proportionally speaking. Interestingly, in the various planning stages, the Victoria Line would have had more track above ground. Early concepts included running on existing track to places like Angel Road and even Hitchin. Another idea was that it would surface in the northern suburbs between South Tottenham and Black Horse Road. When building an underground line, it's often preferable not to be underground if you can avoid it. Digging tunnels is a bigger engineering challenge than running a railway on the surface. Tunnels are preferable in built-up areas, because the cost of buying up land, demolishing buildings and associated legal issues makes it cheaper to just dig under the problem. There's also a third challenger in all of this. The Waterloo and City Line is 100% underground, so as a proportion of the whole line it is the most underground. But if we look at the mileage of underground tunnel, the Waterloo and City Line is a mere pipsqueak, less than 2 miles long. The Victoria Line has 13 miles of tunnel, which is more impressive. But it's still nothing compared to the mighty Northern Line. The tunnel from East Finchley to just north of Morden is the longest railway tunnel in Britain at 17 miles 528 yards. When it opened in 1939, it was the longest in the world. The Archer statue at East Finchley commemorates this, and there was an idea to put another Archer at Morden, but this was abandoned. I've also heard the story that they did build it, but it was nicked, but I've not seen any real evidence for that. The Charing Cross branch adds another 4 miles, assuming I've read this map correctly, and there are 2 more miles with the Battersea Power Station extension. So the Northern Line has approximately 22 1/3 miles of tunnel, making it the undergroundest line in terms of actual distance in tunnel. There was a Freedom of Information request from TfL not too long ago, which ranked the lines in terms of proportional distance underground. It did not include sidings or depots, only the bits used by passengers. With this in mind, it ranked the Victoria and Waterloo and City Lines joint top, followed by the Northern, then the Circle, Hammersmith and City, Jubilee, Bakerloo, Piccadilly, Central, District, and finally Metropolitan. The Metropolitan has a mere 5% of its track below ground, which reflects two things. Firstly, that it's more of a main line than its counterparts and travels further out of the city. And secondly, that when it was built it had far less London to contend with. Many of the suburbs it travelled to were just villages out in the countryside. I was a little surprised to see that the Jubilee line ranked below the Hammersmith and City, but I guess that's because my mental image of the Hammersmith and City line is stations like Goldhawk Road, whereas my mental image of the Jubilee line is stations like Westminster and Canary Wharf. So anyway, that's the answer. The undergroundest underground line is either the Waterloo and City Line or the Northern Line, depending how you define undergroundest and whether undergroundest is even a word, which I'm pretty sure it isn't. I hope you enjoyed this well-defined tale from the tube. If you did, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more of my undergrounding shenanigans, in the undergroundest of the undergroundy places. I would like, as ever, to give my thanks to my generous donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your support. You are the datum point to my distance. And I will see you all again very soon for another Tale from the Tube.